In The Lord of the Rings, there are some incredible moments where our favorite characters display acts of heroism or villainy. And in the Middle-earth strategy battle game, for the most part, characters do what they do in the lore, but I reckon there's some characters that need a massive buff in order to represent what we saw in the story. That's right, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the 6 characters that kinda suck the most and talk about how I want them to be improved. Now, to be honest, usually I'm not the biggest fan of wishlist videos because they seem a little bit silly. Like, what's the point of wishing for something when you're not the rules writers? They're not necessarily going to listen to you. All these rules are already written. But the reason I'm really interested in this video in particular is because we have the new edition of Middle-earth strategy battle game coming out, and the rules writers have said that they're going to be updating the characters to be more accurate to what they did in the lore. So I think that this wishlist video kind of has a place. Alrighty, let's get straight into the list, and it's going to start off with Lurtz, the Uruk-hai scout captain that we see in the Fellowship of the Ring. Now, full disclosure, I have just painted my Lurtz and I've just started to play this army, so it makes sense that I want him to get a buff. But I do think that it is well-founded as well. In the previous edition of the game, Lurtz was basically just a scout captain with an extra point of might. That's a little bit lame. Then in this edition of the game, he got an extra attack and an extra wound, making him pretty scary. But he still wasn't really that scary. So then the Lurtz's Scouts Legendary Legion came out, which is the army that I've just painted up and am currently playing. And he got some extra special rules. He got the ability to throw his shield, just like how he did in the lore, and he got a rule that interacts with Heroic Challenge, which is kind of cool. He also got an 8-inch move, which helps, but none of this has really been enough to make him as scary as I think he should be. I think it's really silly that he doesn't have a special rule that interacts with archery at all. So if I was in charge, I would firstly give him expert shot so he can fire twice per turn, and I would give him a special rule that gives him +1 to wound heroes if he shoots them with his bow and they're in combat. That might be a little bit convoluted, so maybe you just say +1 to wound against heroes with his bows, because that's exactly what he did in the lore. Now, in one of the articles, the rules writers did sneak peek that Lurtz will be getting a 5+ invulnerable to pain, so like a feel no pain save, or just, I don't know, a 5-up armor save if you come from 40k. So every time he takes a wound on a 5-up, he ignores it, and that's great. We see Aragon stab him through the leg, and he kind of just takes it, licks the knife, and throws it away. So I want to see his profiling game being as scary as that. Alright, number 2 on the list is a character that we don't see in the films at all. In fact, this character just got completely replaced by Arwen. That's right, I'm talking about Glorfindel. In the lore, Glorfindel goes and saves Frodo. In the film, he's replaced by Arwen. And it's kind of a fair enough change because basically we meet Glorfindel, they're like, hey, this guy, he's the best. He's such a strong elf, and we're never going to see him again. Which was a little bit sad. But in the lore, he's an absolute beast. He's a Balrog slayer. He's thousands of years old. It's said that he is the only one who can openly ride against all 9 of the Nazgul at once. So if we wanted a lore-accurate Glorfindel profile, he'd have to sit somewhere in like the 400 point mark, which would be absolutely incredible. But I don't think that really works for a tabletop game. It's like in 40k, if you wanted to make a model of the Emperor and you just made him like 2 million points, kind of doesn't really work for a tabletop game. But what do I want to see changed with him? What's wrong with him? Because a lot of people quite like him, and it might be a little bit controversial to have him on a list of heroes that is bad in the first place, but I do stand by it. He's got Fight 7, which is fantastic. He's got 3 attacks, which is fantastic. He's got Lord of the West, giving him a bunch of rerolls, which is fantastic. He's got ultra-resistant magic, which is fantastic. He's got a 12-inch move, which is fantastic on his horse. So where's it going wrong? Well, pretty much he's 170 points, and he's 3 attacks, which is, that's fine. But he's only strength 4, so at the end of the day, you can do all these tricks with him, charge in all these exciting ways, and he just fails to kill stuff because he doesn't really hit very hard. So I'd like to see something that improves his hitting power, ability to just put out damage, because at the moment, I'm really not super scared of him, and for him to kill a Balrog would require him rolling about 1 million 6s in a row and the Balrog not rolling any 6s. So seeing him brought slightly closer to what we see in lore, I think would be really, really cool. The next character that I want to put on this list is a super iconic villain. We see them fighting several times, and that is, of course, the Fell Beasts, or specifically the Nazgul riding the Fell Beasts. We see them chasing down Faramir's retreat from Osgiliath and absolutely obliterating the initial wave of defenders in the Siege of Minas Tirith. They should be really, really cool. We should get to see them a lot, but they really don't get on the battlefield that often. And there's a few reasons for this to break down. Firstly, it's the fact that they're being ridden by the Nazgul. And the Nazgul profile is very much a support hero, a caster hero, which, this is a total side note, I don't think that really represents how I've imagined the Nazgul in the lore. I've just finished reading the Fellowship of the Ring for the, I don't know how many time, like millionth time, and I don't really get the translation from what we see in the books and the films into the profile, with them just being like a support caster. Like, they traveled all the way across Middle-earth, probably were in a bunch of fights, but if they, every time they fight, they lose will, so it doesn't really seem like they'd be able to travel long distances by that, but beside the point. Basically, the Fell Beasts are super iconic. I'd like to see them taken more, and I think the way that would happen is just tweaking the Nazgul profile. I wouldn't mind seeing them get a second attack and focusing more on fighting instead of on magic. In my dream situation, they go down to like a 4-will character, but they don't lose will when they fight, and they get 2 attacks. So they're a bit more combat focused, and give them strike, and then we can chuck them on some Fell Beasts and see them flying around as much as we did in the lore. At the moment, you basically always see them on horses because they just need to run around and cast some spells from the backfield, and that's kind of lame. Let's get them into the fight. Next one on my list is one that we didn't see really in the films or the books at all, sort of, but it is the dragon. The dragons are just such an iconic fantasy creature. Every fantasy setting pretty much has some form of dragons, whether they're beasts like we see in Middle-earth or there's people riding dragons. Dragons are cool. Everyone likes dragons. And I want to see lots of people playing with dragons. And at the moment, they're 250 points base, and you've got a couple options with how to upgrade them. They can take a maximum of 2, and they can choose between getting tougher, being able to fly, being able to breathe fire, and being able to cast a little bit of magic. Now, if you're actually a cool dragon player, you give them fly and breathe fire every single time, but I like that you can build them in different ways. So what's wrong with the profile? At 350 points, they really are the core of your list no matter what points you're playing. And they can hit really hard, they've got some great abilities, but they have one special rule which completely throws them in the bin. They've got survival instinct, which means that every time they take a wound, they have to take a courage check. If they fail that courage check, they're dead. They flee the battlefield, remove the dragon. And on top of that, they're only courage 4, which is, it's fine, but it's pretty mediocre when your 350 point dragon could just cop a single wound and fly away. So if you take a wound early to shooting and you roll pretty poorly on the courage, you either have to spend all your will so you can't breathe fire, or all your might so you're not able to do cool stuff, and then next turn the same thing might happen and you might be gone. And while I understand that keeps, well, it doesn't really balance them, it makes them very weak, but yeah, sure, there's a game mechanic, but that game mechanic just isn't fun. No one's gonna have fun when their 350 point dragon that's supposed to fly around, breathe fire, kill everything, just flees the battlefield. So basically, I would just remove survival instinct, and I think that makes the dragons a pretty reasonable and balanced profile. Do I think that they'd be the best thing in the world? Absolutely not. Do I think that they would more accurately represent the fear of dragons? Absolutely, and I think that they're so iconic that I'd love to see them played more, and this would really help with that. Now, in this list, there's probably some things that you agree with or disagree with, or things that you think I should have included in the list, and let me know down in the comments below. By leaving a comment and subscribing, you're helping support the channel and helping us grow and put out more videos. And if you like this content and you want to hear an extended version of this video, where Sean and I go through a full list with probably 25 heroes, and just have a chat about it, then you can jump over to our Patreon. And on to our next character, kind of the main character of the story, a little bit debatable, one of the main characters, and that is Aragon, specifically Aragon King Alessa. Aragon King Alessa is the final form of Aragon. He's gone through his journey and he has taken the crown, the King of Gondor, finally overcome his fears if you're a movie fan, or just fulfilled his destiny if you're a book fan. And here's the equal most expensive model on the good side, coming in at 240 points if you take him on horse, which is pretty hefty. And he is pretty cool. He's got 3 attacks. So he's got a sword that means he never needs more than a 4 up to wound, which is pretty good. His horse is armored and he has horse sword, so he can keep it alive. He's a 6-inch banner, which is pretty helpful, but for 240 points, he's only fight 6. And there are dozens of characters on fight 6 in this game. So Aragon is just on par with the regular old Dwarven King, like Rutabi, some random Easterling lady, Amdur, another random Easterling. There is a ton of fight 6 characters, and Aragon, King Lesser, is on par with them. I think that's a little bit silly. So what I would do is I would boost his fight value, and I'm going to go all the way up to fight 9 with Aragon. Now, the rules writings team has said in the new edition that the fight values will be spread out more, so I'd expect him to go up anyway, but I want to go all the way to the second highest fight value in the game, so he's only outfought by things like Sauron or Smaug, because he is Aragon King Lesser, the final form of our main character, who I'm a massive fan of, and I want to see him on the battlefield a lot more. Now, another weakness that he has is he only has 3 points of will. And there are a ton of casters that just do a 1 dice transfix every single turn, like a 55 point ring wraith, 7 will points. There's 7 3-up transfixes that can really just block a lot of his coolness. It's so easy to shut him down with magic, and I think that's really silly because in the movies, we see him hold the Palantir and stare directly back at Sauron's eye and be like, all right, let's go, man. And then later on at the Black Gate, the eye stares directly at him and he just turns around and is like, hey, let's send it, boys. So he wasn't scared off by that magic. So what I would do is I would give him the same special rule that Elendil has, which is he always has the Fortify Spirit magical power cast on him. So he always gets plenty of dice to resist, making him a lot more immune to magic. Now, I've said in other videos that I want to see magic debuffed across the board in general because I think it's way too powerful. And along with being powerful, I think it's really lame when my cool character just gets transfixed. So if that happens and this happens, I think that would push Aragon into a much better place where we're going to see him on the battlefield a lot more. And for being one of the most iconic characters, I think that just makes sense. All right, there is one more character on the list, and I think that this character is the most iconic character. Up for debate. Roast me in the comments. I don't know. I think this is pretty solid opinion. And that is Gandalf. That's right. Gandalf, probably the character that is most in the cultural zeitgeist. Fancy word for you there. Everyone knows who Gandalf is. Even if they're not Lord of the Rings fans, even if they've never seen the movies, Gandalf would be the character that people have heard of and seen the most. And in-game, he's lacking. I'm going to mainly focus on talking about Gandalf the White here, because he's the one that's seriously lacking. Some of this does apply to Gandalf the Grey as well, who we see quite a bit more, and he's a bit better for his points, but I still don't think he lives up to what we see in the films and the story. Firstly, Gandalf the White has 2 attacks and Gandalf the Grey just has 1. And in the movies, we see him absolutely hacking and slashing just about everyone. So I think that it would make sense if his profile gets a boost. I would take Gandalf the Grey to 2 attacks and Gandalf the White to 3 attacks, which gives him obviously 4 attacks on the charge, so he's actually scary in combat. We see him killing so many orcs with his sword that I want to see that happen in the game. People always want to keep him in the backfield because if he gets charged, he can't cast magic. So maybe a really cool way to balance out this like combat mage is that he still has some level of magic that he can do if he's been charged. So you are motivated to throw him in the front line and always have him fighting as well. Now, when it comes to casting, he's got a big variety of spells, which is fantastic, but he's not super reliable. The other most iconic casters, like Saruman and the Witch King, both get rerolls to their cast, which makes them just 10 times more reliable. Now, I literally just talked about Aragon saying I think that we should debuff magic in general, and I still stand by that. But I think that if any magic character is getting a buff, it should be Gandalf the White. Even if you just leave him how he is, and then you debuff the rest of the magic, I think that would be a suitable way to do it. Or, if you're not going to debuff magic, at least boost Gandalf the White and a little bit Gandalf the Grey as well, so that his casting is just more reliable. With Gandalf the White, I would also give him aura abilities that can affect the models around him. In the Defense of Minas Tirith, we see him commanding troops. He really holds the defenders together and is the hero of that defense. And at the moment, he doesn't have any special rules that really reflect that. I think it'd be really cool if, all good models within 6 inches of him were fearless or something like that. Or if you had a couple once per game abilities, something like aim for the trolls. So once per game, he can declare aim for the trolls and all shooting models get some sort of bonus. And it'd be cool if he had, 3 of them for each phase of the defense, like one where he says man your post, so that's some march or courage bonus, aim for the trolls, so a shooting bonus, and then your Metagond or hold your line, something like that, that's some sort of fighting bonus. I think that would be really cool and it would help represent him even better. All right, well, that's my list for the top 6 characters that I want to see improved in this edition. If you like this video, let me know in the comments. What did I leave out of this list? What do you think should have been added, or did I get anything wrong? Let me know in the comments and we'll have a chat about it. All right, this has been Conquest Creations. Thank you for watching, and until next time, have a good one.